here it is, the end of the winter, and the month of February is actually the perfect month to prune. I always tell people, think of February as pruning month. Even though there's a few things that you can't prune or shouldn't prune during February, almost everything else that we can prune, trees and shrubs and landscapes, can be pruned in February up until early March. The things not to prune are probably the bleeders. That's the elms and the maple and that family, because they're what we would think of as very sappy plants, and we want to prune them in the very deepest dormancy. So really January is better for the bleeders, like the maples and the elms. But if you prune in early February, you should be okay. Just don't wait till we start getting those late winter warm days where the sap could be moving, and then you could have a problem with too much sap when you prune. The other thing that you can't prune right now, or should not prune right now, is the spring blooming shrubs and trees. So a perfect example of that are azaleas or forsythia, that they're going to be the first things that bloom in the spring, and they set that bud that they're blooming from in summer. So if you were to go in and prune right now your spring flowering shrubs, you'd cut all the flower buds off. So wait on those. The rule of thumb is to wait until they finish blooming and then to prune them. So that's going to be depending on what it is, late spring, early summer, and then make your pruning job after the buds have all fallen off the plant, and you can prune the spring flowering shrubs. Other than that, you can prune most everything right now. Your fruit tree should be pruned. Hold off on your peaches until late February, early March, but go ahead and begin to prune your apples, your cherries, your plums, your pears. Your berries can all be pruned. Blackberries, raspberries, you can prune those. Also, almost everything else in the landscape that needs pruned. We don't need to prune every plant in the landscape. Some of them we actually don't need to prune. Like you might never have to prune a pecan tree if it's got good shape and no damage in the wood. Most of the time when we prune, we're pruning to remove any dead or diseased or damaged wood, and we're also pruning to control shape or size, or to invigorate the tree. The kind of tools that you normally need for a pruning job at home would be some hand pruners. You can buy hand pruners, inexpensive or very expensive. Inexpensive ones, usually the blades don't stay that good that long, or they're not gonna hold up real good. Expensive ones that are well made, as long as you take care of them, can last you for literally for a lifetime. The other thing you're gonna want, possibly, most of us are gonna want loppers. The thing about loppers is because of the way they're made, they create leverage. So you can make cuts that you normally wouldn't be strong enough to make probably with your hand, because you can use the leverage of the loppers to get a better cut. So you can cut bigger limbs if you use loppers. You may want a folding saw or a straight edge saw to cut bigger limbs, but if it's anything bigger than that you feel like you'd have to get on a ladder or you'd have to use a chainsaw to remove, you probably need an arborist. If you're going to hire an arborist, you may want one that's certified by the International Society of Arborists. You can look that up online, ISA certified arborist. Or if you're going to use someone that's not an ISA arborist, make sure that their insurance have insurance and that they're bonded, so that you don't have to worry about an accident happening on your property. A couple of other tips for pruning is we want to prune approximately 1/3 of a tree and no more. You could do less than that, but no more than 1/3 of a tree, and no more than 1/2 of a shrub. You could also prune 2/3 of a shrub if it's something that's going to is very vigorous and will grow back. You could cut 2/3, but so try to shoot for 1/3 on your trees or less. Just do what you have to do, and 1/2 or less on your shrubs. And the other thing is, don't use pruning paint. That's something that we used to do, but we don't encourage pruning paint anymore. And also make sure that when you make those cuts on the wounds, that you make the cut to where you're not into the flesh of the tree, but on the collar. And to learn about all these types of pruning tips and how to make proper cuts, when to make them, and how to make them, this fact sheet, Pruning Ornamental Shrubs and Tree Shrubs and Vines, can be found and downloaded at facts.okstate.edu. So take time to read this before you go out and prune this spring.